Welcome to the Big Success Show. Today, to succeed, don't focus on outcome.
Big Success with the Professor and Mary-Lynn.
What? Don't focus on outcome. I thought I was always supposed to focus right there, laser focus on that outcome.
I know.
Well, we're going to find out today, actually, by sharing a story with you about an actor. Now, truthfully, early in his career, he was not really an actor. He was an auditioner.
Yes.
All he did was audition, right? He got turned down, rejection after rejection after rejection. But then he had this change in mindset and his change of focus, which helped him become a big, and that is with 2 G's, capital G, star. He's huge. Hi, I'm George Kruger, also known as the Professor.
And I'm Mary-Lynn. And at Big Success, we're all about helping you find your focus. So this story today is just perfect. We were so excited to be able to share it with you. And it comes from the autobiography, A Life in Parts, by Bryan Cranston.
You know, if you're familiar with Bryan Cranston, I first got to know him through Malcolm in the Middle. And that was a pretty big show, and he was the
Sitcom,
father character.
right.
But then he really, really launched with the show Breaking Bad. And I mean, he has become Hollywood elite. He's part of the Hollywood elite for sure.
Right. That's just a couple of the big ones for him. And he talks about, as the professor mentioned already, that early in his career, he would hustle to do lots of auditions for commercials, to try and get guest starring roles. And Cranston says he was always waiting for the phone to ring after those auditions. And if the phone didn't ring where he would get the part, he would be incredibly disappointed. And then he would kind of wallow in that disappointment, thinking about it and wondering what he could have done differently. And so,
don't we all? From time to time.
Well, this is a very relatable story. And a self-help coach suggested that he focus on process rather than outcome. So this was the big life-changing moment for Cranston.
Yeah, and I guess to kind of think about this a little bit more outside the acting world speak, don't go to the audition to get something, a job.
Or go to the interview.
Right.
You're going to the interview to get the job.
Go there to give something, a great performance, or to just share your wisdom, to showcase the skills you have, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And Cranston says that it was that shift in mindset, so focusing on the process, not the outcome, that empowered him to go to auditions, focusing on the character that he's supposed to be portraying and how to be interesting and more compelling. And it gave him the freedom to be creative and to have fun.
That's important.
Right? He doesn't go there with all this stress about with the outcome that he wants. He's just free to be.
And think about it. When you're around someone who's really tense, tied up, stressed, you feel it, don't you?
Yes, you do.
That energy flows from one person to another. So when you're in a job interview or you're talking with a customer trying to sell them something, if you're not relaxed when doing it, if you're not having fun, they're going to sense that. If you are having fun, they're going to sense that too. Right.
And that fun actually emits confidence.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And confidence is really key to everything. So this new mindset helped Bryan Cranston win the role of Hal in the sitcom Malcolm in the Middle, and that really just helped to launch his career. So let's just kind of take in that story. And Professor, what do you think about all of that?
I think it's an amazing story, and I always love, Mary-Lynn, when we find stories that they don't quite fit the model. But I mean, actors are very entrepreneurial, right? They do a job and a project, a movie or a show or whatever, and then particularly a movie, they're filming that for a period of time, and then they're unemployed for a while, and then they're on to the next movie, and then they're unemployed. Yes, they're always trying to find that next project, which entrepreneurship can be thought of as a series of projects. And really, if you're going to get anywhere in life, think like an entrepreneur, your life is going to be a series of a series of projects.
Speaking of which,
yes.
This right here is a project, our podcast.
That's exactly right.
On top of all the other things that we do for our business. So that doesn't mean that when you say new projects, that doesn't necessarily mean a new business. That can mean, several projects within the same business.
In fact, that's usually the case, that we're enacting on projects in order to grow our business in some way, shape, or form.
Well, let's break down some of the elements of this story from Bryan Cranston's autobiography. So first, he hustled early in his career to do lots of auditions so that he could win roles and be successful, but that strategy didn't work. So does that mean we should take out of this story that we don't need to hustle?
That'd be nice, wouldn't it? And actually, the answer is sometimes hustle can get in the way.
Sure.
Hustle wears you out if you're not succeeding.
Well, if you're not focused and you're running around and get nowhere fast,
and
right?
you just said the magic word, Mary-Lynn, focus, right? So hustle helps if it moves you forward. If you've got that vision of where you want to go and this is moving you towards that vision, then hustle like crazy. But boy, until you've got that, all the hustle in the world is just going to make you more tired. And that's something we really need to understand. And I think that's not talked about often enough. You know, we are such a goal-driven society, but if you don't understand the true why behind your goal, it's pretty meaningless, really, because you achieve your goal and you're still unhappy. You still have a void in your heart. You still don't feel fully content and fulfilled.
Right. Working hard versus working smart.
Yes, and even, or as we like to say, don't just work hard, don't just work smart, live strategically.
Okay, I like that a lot. So another piece of the story is that Cranston would wallow in disappointment and second guess himself when he didn't get the role that he auditioned for early in his career. So does that mean that we shouldn't be disappointed when we don't get something that we want? And isn't there something to learn from our failures? Well,
let's take, you kind of got two comments there, Mary-Lynn. So let's take the first one. Should we not be disappointed? Well, yeah, it's okay to be disappointed from time to time. Yeah. Now, if you live in a constant state of disappointment, something's got to change.
Well, let me just say this. I'm thinking about the author who gets, that you always hear, the author got hundreds of rejection letters. If all you're getting is rejection, how do you not have a lot of disappointment?
Well, the key thing is, and this is what this whole podcast is really all about, we've been told, if at first you don't succeed, try again. Well, I like to explain to people is, you don't hear anybody say, if at first you don't succeed, try again. At some point, you got to try something different. And that's exactly what Bryan Cranston did. He did something different, right? So if you're perpetually disappointed, you got to try something different. Because what do you have to lose? You may be disappointed again, but at least you're disappointed about something new. Yeah. That in itself has a little bit of excitement to it, right? But the other thing is that's really important to understand is when I say it's okay to be disappointed, it's okay to be disappointed tonight or today until tomorrow. Take that disappointment, lick your wounds, take away the lessons you need to take away. And now we're kind of getting to the second question, Mary-Lynn.
Right, about, well, isn't there something to learn in our failures? And I've learned quite a bit when I fail. In fact, we often hear as entrepreneurs that that's what our goal should be. The faster you fail, the better you are, because you learn and you know what direction to take when you have experienced a failure.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely right. So I lose today. I spend this evening licking my wounds and extracting every single possible bit of information I can learn from what happened today. And then I come into the new day tomorrow full of strength, vigor, and ready to go. And I'm going to double down on how hard I try.
Let's move on to another part of the story where Bryan Cranston said that he changed his mindset and didn't focus on the outcome. And it almost seems counterintuitive because, well, how can you set a goal if there isn't an outcome attached to it?
Right.
So, yes. I mean, how can you completely detach yourself from the outcome?
And boy, this is completely the entrepreneurial mindset at work. And it's not labeled that way in his autobiography. But entrepreneurs often don't have outcome goals. Entrepreneurs know that sometimes, I can set an outcome goal. I can say, okay, we're going to do $100,000 in sales this month. There's an outcome goal. But if we're just getting started, we haven't even found our first customer, we have no clue what it takes to reach $100,000 in sales. Do we need to advertise? What do we need to do? Now, what we're going to do is we're going to try things.
Well, okay.
And as we're trying things, we're going to say, okay, if I get on the phone and call 10 people, I get 2 good leads. 2 people that will make an appointment with me or schedule a time to talk on the phone or a Zoom meeting or whatever, and one of those 2 is going to buy. Now I can start stepping into how much of that kind of activity it takes for an outcome. I'm going to make 10 calls this week, or I'm going to run 5 ads this week, or something like that. I'm going to do something in my business or in my life. It could be in your life too. I need a job. I'm going to make 5 calls for interviews this week. Something like that. All these are activity goals, not outcome goals.
Okay. But if you are a business, you kind of gave an example of a business maybe that doesn't know how to get $100,000 in sales.
Right.
Let's say you're a business that has been in, you have established yourself, and that is an outcome that is doable.
Yeah.
Well, you shouldn't set that outcome?
No, then when you understand what activities are needed, what strategies, what tactics are needed to reach the outcome, then you go with that. But here's what we've learned and are learning at this point in time. Things change so fast. We live in such a volatile world. There's so much chaos out there. Entrepreneurs thrive in chaos because they tend to set activity goals early in the life of their business. Now, if I'm in an established business or an established organization, I very well may be able to somewhat predict my future. In a smart startup, I probably can't. I need to create my future. And that's what entrepreneurs are so good at, creating their own future.
All right.
Now, I will say, Mary-Lynn, something that Cranston says in the book, he said is when he shifted from focus to process, this is important, he didn't always get the job. But that wasn't his intent anymore. He wasn't trying to get the job. What was important was that he always left the room knowing he did everything he could. It made me think about the very first podcast we did, and we shared John Wooden's definition of success, which is basically do everything you can to become all that you can possibly be. Mm-hmm. That's what he's kind of saying here. Man, if I put it all on the floor, as they say, or the field, as they say in sports.
The outcome doesn't matter.
The outcome doesn't matter. You know, I think of the guy who's, one year, I can't remember, well, it was a Cub. I can't remember which Cub it was. We're Cubs fans. Yeah. But, man, the guy was just rocking the ball. He was hitting the ball hard every single time at the plate practically. But he always hit it right at somebody. And I remember hearing his coach or somebody comment on the fact, it's like, you know what? As long as he's hitting the ball hard, at some point, it's going to flip. It's going to turn over to where he's hitting them where they ain't, as the old saying goes. And the numbers are going to work out for you. You know, that you're going to have your average. You're going to work back to your average. So you're going to have a period of time where you're doing even better than you normally would, because it's kind of just the averages are going to work out. And that's something we can always carry with us. The average is always on our side as long as we keep pushing and keep doing all we can to be all we can be.
All right, so the big takeaway, at least for us, from Bryan Cranston's book, and you will find a link to it in the show notes with this podcast episode, is to enjoy the process and keep your focus on what you need to do next.
Yeah, because focusing on the process gives you the freedom to tap into your unique skill set, and that leads to big success.
Where's your focus? Is it where you want it to be? Take our free life purpose quiz to find out. It's at Big Success. That's big with 2 G's, success.com.
And we thank you so much for listening today.
Until next time,
here's to your big success.
Find Big Success at biggsuccess.com.